You don't build generational wealth because you love money. You build it because one day the market turns dark. The phone rings before sunrise, and everything your family depends on is suddenly on the line. But before that morning arrives, before the million-dollar deals, the LLC, the private equity rooms, and the quiet fear of losing it all, you are just sitting in a windowless back office, staring at a cracked monitor, wondering why your life feels permanently stuck. You track freight invoices for people who will never know your name. The screen flickers. The fluorescent lights buzz above you. Your desk is cheap. Your chair hurts your back, and your paycheck lands every 2 weeks like a small apology. You work double shifts, but nothing actually moves. Then, one Tuesday, an envelope shows up in the mail, and before you even open it, your stomach already knows what it says. Your mother's medical bill is now $11,400. You read the number once, then again, like maybe the ink will rearrange itself if you stare long enough. It doesn't. You open your banking app. Your savings account says $847. Not $8 million. Not $4 million. $847. You have looked at some version of this number for 3 years, and tonight, something inside you finally stops begging for rescue. You don't sleep, but it isn't panic keeping you awake. Panic used to shake you. Panic used to make your chest tight. Now it just sits beside you like an old roommate. You think about all the money you move at work, all the accounts you reconcile, all the invoices you route, and suddenly one thought lands harder than fear. Money is not magic. Money is a system, and systems can be entered from the side door. The next morning, you open a brokerage account with $200. It feels stupid. It feels almost insulting. $200 against medical debt, rent, groceries, exhaustion, and a life that keeps charging interest on your survival. But you do it anyway. You buy fractional shares of an index fund, not because it will save you today, but because time is the only variable you can control. And now the clock is finally working for you. You automate the investment before you can talk yourself out of it. You are not building a ceiling yet. You are building a floor, something under your feet that cannot be taken by one bad week. Then you pick up weekend bookkeeping for a small construction company. The owner is a blunt man named Goran. He pays you $400 a month in cash, and he thinks he is hiring help. But really, he is handing you your first unlocked door. Goran's books are a mess. Receipts in envelopes, materials under the wrong categories, labor costs buried where they don't belong. By the end of one weekend, you see what he can't. 2 of his 5 contracts are losing money. Not slightly. 11%. You tell him directly. He looks at you like you just insulted his business, his pride, and his bloodline at the same time. Then he reaches for his checkbook. The bonus check is not huge, but the meaning is. For the first time, your competence turns into money outside your paycheck. Goran introduces you to his accountant. The accountant introduces you to a property developer. One door opens into the next. Not because the universe suddenly loves you, but because useful people get passed around quietly. You start to understand something dangerous. The world rewards skill before it rewards dreams. The property developer has 3 years of disorganized tax filings. You fix them at night after your real job. Your eyes burning, your back aching, your phone face down so nobody can pull you out of focus. Every month, you track your mother's medical debt. The balance falls slowly, then faster. 14 months later, the debt is gone. You don't celebrate. You just redirect the payment like a machine that finally found its rhythm. The same $600 that used to go toward debt now flows into your investment accounts every month. You live on rice lentils, cheap coffee, and a salary that should not be enough. It almost isn't. At 29, you have $18 million invested. A number that once felt impossible now feels painfully small. So on your lunch breaks, while everyone else scrolls, you open a real estate license book because your next door is not going to open by itself. You don't tell anyone you are studying. Not your coworkers, not your friends, not even your family. Talking about a plan too early makes it soft. You need this to stay hard, private, and real. On Saturday morning, you sit for the exam with tired eyes and a stomach full of gas station coffee. When the screen says you passed, you don't cheer. You just breathe once because now the license is yours. On Monday, you go back to the same office like nothing happened. Same cracked monitor, same buzzing lights, same invoices moving across your desks. But you are not the same person anymore. The license is not a dream. It is a tool. And tools only matter when the right problem appears. A few weeks later, your property developer client mentions a distressed duplex no agent wants to touch, and your whole body goes still. The asking price is $74 million. The neighborhood is rough enough to scare off polished agents, but not broken enough to scare you. They see peeling paint-boarded windows and risk. You see numbers. You walk the property yourself with a contractor friend, moving room by room, touching walls, checking floors, listening for the kind of silence that means real damage. The structure holds. The fear is mostly cosmetic. The contractor says repairs should be around $9 million. You already suspected it. That estimate turns the property from ugly into interesting. You move fast. You push for a quick close. The seller is tired, the agent wants it gone, and the neighborhood has already been judged by people who never ran the math. Your offer lands at $61 million. When it gets accepted, the wind feels sharp for about 5 seconds, until the real problem appeared. You need $61 million you do not have. The first lender says no. Their risk model hates the neighborhood. You thank them and leave. The second lender says no. Property type issue. You nod like it doesn't hurt. The third lender says no before you even finish explaining. Each rejection feels like somebody trying to push you back into your old life. But now you understand systems, and systems always have more than one door. You find a community credit union that actually listens. You bring 2 years of clean financial history, your bookkeeping records, your proof of income, your repair estimate, and a calm face you do not fully feel. They review your file while you sit there with your hands still and your pulse loud in your ears. Income documented, debt gone, history clean. Then the approval comes through, and for a second the room feels unreal. Your mortgage is $440 a month. Each unit rents for $650. The math works, but math does not fix toilets, screen tenants, or protect you from stupidity. You draft the lease yourself from a legal template and read every clause like your future is hiding in the fine print. The first tenant signs on a Wednesday. After insurance and maintenance reserves, you net $580 a month. It is not passive income. It is proof. Month 7 hits like a warning. One tenant stops paying. No explanation that changes the numbers. No apology that covers the mortgage. You send the first notice. No emotion. Just process. You write the eviction notice yourself, file it yourself, and learn the cold difference between owning an asset and being owned by its problems. You are the manager, repair coordinator, lease drafter, collection agent, and janitor of your own little empire. At 31, you own 3 rental units. None of them are beautiful. None of them would impress anyone on social media. But every month, they send cash back to you after expenses, and that changes the way you breathe. Your index funds sit at $41 million now, quietly compounding in the background. You keep $12 million in a high-yield savings account and never touch it. Because reserves are not lazy money, they are survival in disguise. A colleague at the logistics firm finally asks how you built what you have. You tell him the truth, spend less than you make, automate investments, buy cash-flowing assets, and never confuse being busy with making progress. He nods like you handed him a secret code written in another language. Most people want the shortcut, not the structure. You stop being surprised, because by now you know the next level will not care who understands. At 34, a private equity firm contacts you. 4 people, no shiny headquarters, no motivational slogans. Just a small group hunting distressed commercial assets in secondary markets. They do not want your money. Not yet. They have seen your rental portfolio, your notes, your numbers, your strange patience. What they want is your eye for value, and they offer you 10% carry on every deal you source. Carry is not salary. Salary is safe until someone cuts it. Carry is upside. It means if the deal wins, you win with it. You start researching secondary markets on weekends like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Vacancy rates, anchor tenant losses, owner carrying costs, demographics, medical demand, grocery access. You stop looking at buildings and start looking at pressure. Because pressure is where forced sellers hide. Then you find it. A vacant strip mall sitting half dead on the edge of a market nobody fashionable is watching. The anchor tenant left 18 months ago. The owner is bleeding $14 million a month in carrying costs. The property is assessed at $1. $2 million, but assessment is theory. Pain is real. You stare at the numbers and feel the old back office silence return. Because this is the kind of door that only opens once. You model the repositioning from scratch. 2 medical clinics, a pharmacy, a regional grocery store anchoring the East End. You test every assumption until the spreadsheet starts to feel less like hope and more like evidence. Post-stabilization net operating income, $180 million a year. You run downside cases, slower lease up, higher tenant improvement costs, lower rent. Even bruised, the deal still breathes, and now you have to say it out loud. You present the deal to the firm. 4 principals sit across from you, quiet enough to make the room feel colder. You explain the vacancy, the seller pain, the tenant mix, the repositioning plan, the expected NOI, and the exit path. Nobody interrupts. That scares you more than criticism. When you finish, one of them leans back and asks only one question: acquisition cost. You say $890 million and the room changes. They buy it. Your name is not on the deed. But the deal is yours in every way that matters. For 2 years, you track tenant calls, renovation delays, leasing updates, and every tiny threat that could kill the model. The clinic opens first, then the pharmacy signs, then the grocery anchors the East End. One by one, the empty spaces stop looking abandoned and start looking inevitable, like the building had been waiting for you. The NOI stabilizes almost exactly where you modeled it. That should feel amazing, but instead it feels dangerous. Being right once can make people stupid. You write that down. The firm exits at $2. $1 million. The return is clean. Your carry is $121 million. You have never seen that much money with your name attached to it. For 1 hour, you just sit there, looking at the number, afraid of what it might turn you into. You do not buy a car. You do not upgrade your apartment. You do not suddenly become the person you used to secretly resent. $80,000 goes into a self-directed IRA. From there, you enter a private bridge lending deal at 10% annualized with a residential developer. Short-term capital. Secured position. Clean documents. The money starts working while you sleep. And for the first time, sleep feels like leverage instead of escape. You keep $41 million in reserve. Other people call reserves wasted opportunity. You call them oxygen. Markets always move against someone eventually. And you have no interest in being the person forced to sell when the room runs out of air. By 37, you are no longer an employee. You register an LLC on a Tuesday afternoon. It takes 12 minutes, but when the confirmation appears, your life splits into before and after. The LLC is not impressive on paper. A name, a filing, a structure. But structure is how fragile money becomes harder to kill. You now own 7 rental units across 2 states. They send cash flow every month without needing your direct labor every hour. Your brokerage account crosses $200 million. The same compounding that began with $200 is now visible. And that is exactly when fear comes back wearing a new face. You are not afraid of being poor anymore. That fear is old. You know its voice. This new fear is quieter and more humiliating. You are afraid of getting comfortable. You have watched people fight for years to reach a number, then fall asleep inside it. They stop learning. They stop checking assumptions. They start believing the machine will run forever just because it ran yesterday. So you hire a fee-only financial planner, not because you are clueless. You understand money better than most people you meet now. That is exactly why you hire him. Wisdom at this level means knowing the difference between knowing a lot and still being blind. He reviews your structure, your accounts, your rentals, your taxes, and after a long silence, he points to something you missed. Depreciation alone can reduce your taxable income by $38 million a year. You knew depreciation mattered, but you had not built the full strategy around it. Then he flags a trust structure you had never seriously considered. LLCs, holding company, separate accounts, tax-deferred, tax-free, taxable. Suddenly, your wealth stops looking like a pile and starts looking like architecture. The money is no longer just growing. It is being protected. You implement everything, but you stay in control of decisions. You are not outsourcing judgment. You are buying visibility. At 40, your net worth crosses $1. $1 million. You check the number on a Tuesday morning. The same kind of ordinary Tuesday when that medical bill once arrived. You do not tell your friends. You do not tell your family. Nobody needs to know because the point was never applause. Your mother's care is covered now. That was the reason you started. And you refuse to let ambition rewrite the origin story. Then your sister needs help. You send her $15 million, but not as a gift. A documented interest-free loan. She signs. You file the paperwork. It feels cold until you remember that love without structure can quietly become chaos. And you are done letting chaos touch your family. On her 30th birthday, you log in and forgive the loan quietly. No announcement. No emotional speech. No reminder that you saved her. She may never fully understand what happened, and that is fine. Power does not always need witnesses. Sometimes the deepest win is removing pressure from someone's life so cleanly they never feel your hand on the wheel. Your rentals now sit inside LLCs inside a holding company. Your investment accounts are separated by purpose. Taxable money for flexibility. Tax-deferred money for long-range compounding. Tax-free money for future optionality. Each account has a job. Each structure has a reason. You begin modeling a family trust before you even have heirs. Because generational wealth is not built when the child is born. It is built before anyone is looking. The private equity relationships mature. You are no longer just the person sending interesting leads. You are co-sponsoring deals beside institutional capital. Your own money is on the table now. Your name is in the operating agreement. You are a principal. The word should feel glamorous, but it doesn't. It feels heavier than any job title you ever had. Because now your mistakes can survive longer than you do. You model a 40% correction in commercial real estate every quarter. Most people model upside until they feel rich. You model pain until you know what survives. A correction that size would stress your portfolio hard. A regulatory shift in depreciation rules would crush part of your tax efficiency. You track legislation, refinancing window, tenant exposure, and debt maturities like a pilot watching storms form beyond the horizon. You keep reserves most people with your net worth would have already deployed. They call that conservative. You call it leverage, waiting for the right moment. Dry powder is boring until everyone else is desperate. At 43, you sit in a room with 4 other principals. The deal size is $18 million. Your co-investment is $400 million. And the pen in front of you feels heavier than it should. $400,000 is 22% of your liquid capital. And that number matters more than the size of the room. Everyone else is talking about upside scale institutional alignment and market timing. You are staring at the downside. Vacancy, refinancing risk, tenant failure, rate pressure, a delayed exit. You run the scenario twice because fear is useless unless you turn it into math. The downside is ugly but survivable. That is the only question that ever matters. Not whether the deal can make you rich. Not whether the room respects you. Not whether your name belongs beside theirs. Survivable means you can be wrong and stay in the game. You sign not with confidence but with clarity. You know exactly what you are committing and, more importantly, what you are not. That night you go home and sit in the dark longer than you planned. Nobody sees this part. Nobody sees the wait after the signature. The world thinks wealth makes people fearless, but that is childish. Wealth gives fear better vocabulary. Now fear says basis points. It says tenant concentration. It says liquidity. It says succession planning. It says if something happens to you tomorrow, does the machine keep running? So you build the machine to survive without your mood, your memory, or your daily control. Operating agreements are cleaned up. Beneficiary designations are checked. Insurance policies are reviewed. Emergency instructions are written. Your family would not need to understand every asset to be protected by the structure. That is what generational really means. Not luxury, not trophies. Continuity. But continuity is about to be tested. A credit event hits overnight in a European banking corridor. By sunrise, commercial lending starts tightening faster than anyone expected. The headlines are careful, but lenders are not. They pull back. They reprice risk. They slow approvals. Suddenly, the refinancing window you planned for next quarter looks less like a plan and more like a door closing from the other side. Your phone lights up at 6:47 a.m. 2 of your tenants are subsidiaries of a mid-size retailer that just filed for Chapter 11. The news lands with a cold physical weight. These are not abstract companies inside a spreadsheet anymore. They are rent checks, covenants, debt coverage ratios, lender confidence. You open the model before you even stand up. Your coffee goes cold beside you while 3 possible futures begin forming on the screen. Scenario 1, negotiate extensions and preserve cash until lending loosens. Scenario 2, replace the exposed tenants before the lender forces the issue. Scenario 3, inject reserve capital, protect the asset, and sacrifice short-term comfort to keep the structure alive. None of them are beautiful. All of them cost something. The old version of you would have prayed for the problem to disappear. This version knows problems only respect preparation. You get on the call with your lender. Your voice is calm because the panic already happened years ago in a small apartment with an $11 SOM, $400 medical bill, and $847 in savings. That was where the soft version of you died. The lender wants numbers. You have them. They want exposure. You have it. They want a plan. You give them 3, and for the first time that morning, the silence on the line changes. Nothing is saved yet. That is the part people hate about real wealth. There is no final level where the music swells and the credits roll. There is only a larger system, larger stakes, and a deeper obligation not to become careless. You built from nothing, but nothing still lives somewhere inside you. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you suspicious. It keeps you from worshiping the number. Tomorrow, the market opens again. Indifferent to your story, your sacrifice, your mother's care, your sister's quiet rescue, and every lonely night that built the machine. It will ask one question, the only question it ever asks. What do you do next? You look at the model, the reserves, the risk, the life you built from the side door, and you realize the dark truth of generational wealth. You never finish building it.